So we'll start with the basic, and we are all. So I have seen like people are all of you are from SAP background, and APO mostly are from APO background. So there are some new terminologies which will be there in IBP. So initially I'll introduce them to you, and then later on I'll be using every now and then those terminologies. So that is why today I'll go a little bit slow. So I'll request you to just try to remember these terminologies, because you may get confused while using it and while understanding it. Why I'm saying that, initially for me also it was pretty confusing. So I'm just like advising you, like initially just take it little bit slow. Try to settle in all those terminologies. They are pretty similar when we'll be hearing them for the first time. Okay, so we'll start with the module introduction first. So in IBP, I know during demo we have covered this slide, but just for the flow purpose, I'll start with this slide where like we have what kind of modules we in IBP will be covering, and what are different functionalities are there with respect to each and every module. So I'll start with this demand planning first. So in demand planning, as we know, we can perform all those traditional statistical forecasting. There are some new forecasting methodology algorithms has been introduced by SAP, and every quarterly they are upgrading with the new features and new functionalities. Apart from that, the new functionalities which they have introduced, which is the main part in demand, is the demand sensing part. So statistical forecasting is the old traditional forecasting where we can read past 3 to 5 years of sales history and we perform the statistical forecasting, right? But so it was a mid-term or long-term kind of forecasting. But nowadays, since the business is changing so fast, business needs some kind of tool or some kind of algorithm which can read the recent sales orders pattern, and based on that suggest week, 2 week or 3 week kind of patterns based, which can be used by sales team or supply team to perform their supply planning, right? So in this demand sensing, those functionalities has been introduced. So it's just a kind of a one more algorithm kind of thing. So just like we prepare the profile for forecast model, statistical forecast, for similarly for demand sensing also we prepare the forecasting model. So what all parameters it can take, that we'll study in the demand module. Now this, apart from this next module is the inventory. So inventory is as a separate module. It was introduced for the first time initially in APO. Some safety stock planning was there where we could have calculated some advanced safety stock methods were there, which used to take inputs like replenishment lead time or service level or some forecast error, right? So that was just a basic part of it. But in IO, they have introduced the like some inventory optimization, like multi-echelon inventory optimization we can do, and the target service level we can calculate, and what should be the safety stock at the different nodes in supply chain. So that kind of multi-stage inventory optimization we can perform over here. So whenever so in IBP, it's like whenever any client is going for license, they can go for the individual license as well as a whole package as well. So similarly, when this supply and response, initially it was there as a part, different modules were there. But I think since last 1 year, they have combined them in a single module, where in supply we can perform all those time series based planning, where unconstrained planning like heuristic we can use. We can perform constraint planning like optimization we can perform. So all those cost based optimization we can perform in supply. Similarly in response, it is the replicate of the CTM which was there in APO, where we can write all those different priorities, different rules. So the sales order we can consider, all those planning we can perform in IBP for response. Apart from that, we can perform the basic ATP check as well. So product allocation also we can check. it is not that much advanced as compared to in APO. The GATP was there because the GATP functionalities, SAP has moved to S4 HANA, that is called as AATP nowadays. In IBP, we can perform the basic ATP, not the advanced level ATP. Since it was more of an execution part, so it was moved to S4 HANA. Here in response, we can just perform the planning part. Now, this next module is S&OP. So this S&OP is not a new thing which was SAP has introduced. It's just a name of a process which nowadays different businesses used to follow. So in this process, people from different team members come together and discuss their issues there. So people means the higher management like VP level or senior general manager level. These people come together and discuss what kind of issues business is facing, or what is the different the future growth projections are there, any new product they are introducing, any new geography they are targeting. So these kind of meeting like discussion happen in S&OP meeting. But for that, higher management will need some data, right? Some existing data is there in terms of what is the inventory is there, and what are the capacities are there, what are the different numbers are there currently, right? So those numbers should be there in hand. So SAP has introduced this S&OP process where we can introduce or we can map whatever discussions are happening in S&OP. These discussions can be mapped in this S&OP module. And also in when we are talking about S&OP, this module doesn't have any specific engine attached to it. Whatever features are there in demand, inventory or supply or response, these features we can use in S&OP. But the main part which S&OP has introduces the process management, which will combine all those different functionalities available in different modules. So as a licensing part, when any client purchase S&OP, they will get just the basic functionalities of different like demand planning, inventory planning. Basic functionalities means like, let's say if I'm performing demand planning in S&OP, I can only use some basic statistical forecasting algorithm, like the simple moving average was there. Similarly, if I talk about the supply, if I have only S&OP license, I can only perform the heuristic planning over there. So if anyone is going for the license of all the modules, then only they can use that advanced functionalities in S&OP as well. That is why this module is covering all those demand, inventory and supply and response modules.
Hi, can I interrupt you for a question? Hello.
Okay.
As I understand, like advanced functions like allocations and CTM are covered under IBP for response. What about optimizers?
Yeah, so that's what I said. In supply, we can perform the optimization.
Okay. Heuristics and optimizer is in supply.
Yes. Correct.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll be covering all those unconstrained and constrained planning as well while covering this supply module. Now that the next feature, which is called is supply chain control tower. Okay, so this module you can also see it is covering all these different modules. So the same thing in supply chain control tower also, it doesn't have its own any planning engine or any system. What it will do is it will use the different planning, whatever is happening in demand, inventory or supply and response, and project them in different dashboards, charts, alerts, right? Any like case management we can do, exception handling we can do. So it will give an end-to-end visibility and monitoring and alerting kind of feature to different team members, right? So I can perform all those different tasks in different modules, but we should have, or in APO, what we used to do is we used to perform different alerts were there, different like reports we could have generated, but there is no better UI was there in SAP till now. So that is why this supply chain control tower is being introduced, where the UI is improved and all those charting, all those disaggregation, all alerts can be handled over here, and it can give them a very good high end-to-end visibility. So let's say if any person from business side, any high, like demand planner or any senior manager is there, they don't want to see each and every number every day to day, right? They just wanted to see at the graph level how the numbers are coming in, right? So here they can just directly go to this dashboards and charts, and they can see those numbers. If they wanted to disaggregate it within the chart, that also they can do. So this will just collate all the data in different modules and give it in a better UI feature. Now, when these modules are purchased, they are how they are those licenses are given. They are given in terms of the planning area. So this planning area is something where all those functionalities which are there, they are attached to this planning area. For example, if I'm purchasing the demand, so there is a demand planning sub planning area is there, which is called SAP 6. So that planning area is given the license to the client. So all those functionalities like the so in IBP, all those output we can see in the key figure, right? So that key figure which are relevant to the demand planning, that will be there in demand module. Similarly, in inventory and supply and response, if I'm purchasing all the modules, then I will get a unified planning area where we can have the functionalities from all demand, inventory, supply and response, everything, right? So I'll show you one by one. I'll just wanted to give that introduction of licensing part, how the licensing happen. Now this is the just a high level architecture, how IBP can be attached to different system, right? Now, so till now, like whatever nowadays, since there are so many systems getting the data, there is no single platform which can give all those data from different system at one place, right? Every time I have to go log in into different system, take a dump of it, then share with other people, generate some reports, right? But in IBP, the strong part and the best part is to integrate with all those SAP and non-SAP system. Okay, so whenever this integration is happening, that can be in terms of the integration done by the HANA Cloud integration or smart data integration. So these are two technologies which SAP has introduced to get the data from SAP system. If I talk about non-SAP system, then those web services are given which can be used to attach to other non-SAP system as well. And also I can upload the data through flat file as well. There is no limitation like I can upload CSV or Excel file, that also we can upload. So when we have all those master data, transaction data in IBP, then only I can perform the planning, right? Because IBP generally as a demo, we used to prepare the data in IBP, but when we are going for any project, real project, the master data should be get transferred in IBP first. So initially, whenever those discussion happen during projects, the initial discussion happen on the types of master data, right? Or types of system to be attached. Then what are types of different transaction data will be flowing from which system. So this mapping should be done initially, otherwise later on that this kind of discussion, if it doesn't happen, if that clarity is not there, then that project will go on toss, right? So, and also will based on those on paper thing like what kind of system will be using and how from which system the data will flow, that document or that paper will be used by HCI consultant who will do the integration part of all those system from master data and transaction data point of view, right? So whenever we get all those data in IBP, we can map them with the different attributes of master data, and we can perform the planning over here. So after getting the data, we can see the data in different types of UIs are there. For example, first is this Excel UI, where we can see the master data as well as transaction data. So the output of IBP, like whatever planning we are performing, we generally create some planning views, which was similar to planning book in APO. That views generally we create, and it's for consultant as well as for the business user who is going to perform the planning. As a part of the configuration, generally we use web UI, where all those configuration like key figure, planning area, the time profile, all those settings we generally do in the web UI part. So as a consultant, 50 to 60 or 60 to 70% time we'll be spending on the web UI part, because this is where we will be able to uh, perform all those configuration based on the requirements. Now, there's certain Fiori apps also SAP has introduced, and that can be checked on desktop, tablets, mobile, right? So those apps are standard apps. Some are, and client also can develop their own apps to see those master data or transaction data, how planning is happening. Okay, so during our training, we'll be covering this Excel as well as web UI, because whatever configuration we are doing in web UI, we'll be seeing those effect of those settings in Excel UI. Okay, so while performing all those settings and IBP, this is just from business perspective, different people are there who can. I think somebody is. Okay, so I'll like you can keep on question. I'll take those question in the in the end of the session, so that it will not break the flow. So just to answer this question, yes, web users will have the access to web UI as well, but just similar to in SAP, those roles and authorizations were there. Similarly, in web UI also, based on the roles and authorization, different options will be available to them, which they can use to see the data. For example, if I say dashboard or charts, right, or alerts, they can see in web UI. So only those features or those options will be available for them in IBP web UI. Okay, or in IBP language, those apps will be available, which they can use to see the data. So from business perspective, this IBP is useful for sales and marketing people, demand planning team, finance team, because all those revenues which based on the planning, they can calculate here as well. Those targets they can discuss in S&OP meeting as well. So finance team also can use those IBP planning views. Supply chain team, of course, this tool is for supply chain. And the executives. Executive means my higher management people who wanted to see the data in much more structured way, rather than taking a dump in Excel and sharing them over email, right? So there is no track to it. Whatever information is available, it's a valid one, or what is the backup of that data, right? So for higher management people also, this IBP feature will help them to see the data. Moving forward, yeah. So now these are the different terminologies which we are going to discuss in today's session. Now, in these attributes, master data types, time profiles, we could have gone through in APO also. There's some features are similar, some features have some different functionalities. So we'll discuss them one by one. So if I talk about planning model, in planning model, we have all those structures which help them to build those modules. So each and every module will have attributes, master data types, the time profile. Every module will be using the same terminology, same data structures throughout their configuration. So these are not specific to any module. These are the generic thing which we should know while going into the IBP configuration. So I'll start with the attribute first. So in attribute, just a small introduction, like whatever information I wanted to save, I wanted to see, that information can be related to any product, any location. So whatever master data is there, those master data will have some information, like if I talk about product, what kind of description is there, or what kind of name attached to it, or it any ABC classification attached to that product, right? So all those information we can save in attributes. So these attributes can have numeric as well as non-numeric information, right? So based on those numeric and non-numeric information, these are different types are there. What kind of information I can save? I can save alphanumeric, decimal, integer, or timestamp as well. So these are the information we can save. So these are just the normal example of attributes. It can be product ID, name, family, or country, region. Similarly, if I talk about location, location ID, name, location description, right? So whenever during the start of the project we discuss all those things, we should have these things in because these are the generic terms, right? But when we are going for the IBP implementation, then we should have the business specific terminology which they call generally, right? So we may be like in IBP language it will be product for us, but for business they may be calling material, right? Like in APO. So this kind of discussion generally it should happen initially, where what kind of terminologies or mappings data they will be saving in attributes. And also when I'm saying the information, I have to decide the length of all those attributes as well, right? For example, the alphanumeric, right? So if I'm saving ID, then what kind of length should be there? If I'm saying description, what kind of length should be there? These kind of discussion should happen initially. Why? Because once we build up all those attributes master data, changing them later on will affect lot of things. Because if I'll show you in web UI how it is going to affect, because whenever we change anything in terms of configuration or settings in IBP, it is going to deactivate my planning area. So whenever a planning area goes on deactivation, nobody will be able to log in planning area through Excel UI, which is my output. Okay. So here it is very important to have those discussion initially, so that later on you don't have to change those attributes. Of course, you can change. There is no limitation to it. But what I am suggesting is this discussion should happen initially, because if later on you are keep on changing these attributes, you may lose some settings, or you may have to that timeline which is going to affect of your projects. Okay. Now, whenever these attributes we are assigning, these attributes may be unique. If they are unique, we call them root attributes. These root attributes define the uniqueness of that master data. For example, if I talk about product, location, customer, so ID attached to that product will define it, will make it unique, right? So it's kind of a primary key which we have in our any table structure, right? Which make any row unique. So here the same thing, product ID, location ID, these we mark it as a root attribute. I'm just introducing the concept in presentation, but we'll see in the web UI how those numbers, how those attributes look like. Now, if you move on to master data, so collection of attribute will be attached to some master data, right? So that master data can be a customer, location, product, any resources there, right? So these are the list of master data which we'll be using in IBP. So some are single master data which are called as simple. Some are combination of two master data that are called as compound, right? So some master data are required or a basic need for demand planning. Some are required for only supply planning, right? So whenever we'll be discussing each and every module, I'll introduce all those different master data which we are going to require, right? So these are different terminologies which are not there in APO. these are new to IBP, like in IBP. For example, if I talk about location source, so in APO it was T lane, but in IBP it has been called as location source. Similarly, if I talk about production source item, so in APO it was part of a PPM, right? For example, in IBP we have BOM item, so that BOM item information we store in production source item. Similarly, so in APO we have this PPM, right? All those information of production version, routing, operations, BOM, input output product, that was there in a single entity, right? But in IBP they have broken down into 3 different master datas. So I'm just telling you like how those like these different terminologies will be there. We'll discuss them in detail, what kind of information we can store, or how those information will be used by IBP while performing the planning. But these master data we have to keep in mind, and we have to be familiar with them, because while performing any scenarios, we'll be using those different master data, and we'll store some information or some attributes, and we'll see how it is going to affect the planning. But before that, we should know what kind of values will be there in each and every type of master data. Okay. Now, so these are the types of, now just focus over here. Here, master data types are there, right? So master data types can be simple, compound, reference, external, virtual. But there is this simple, compound. So they are called as types of master data over here. These are the master data types. These are types of master data. Just like the way we are calling it is different here. These are the location product are called master data types, and how we can categorize them using these types of master data. So here, just this example of simple, the single entity like product, location, customer. If I talk about compound means if I am combining any 2 simple master data, for example, customer location, customer product, or location product, that will be my simple compound master data. Now there is one more type of master data which is called as reference. So reference master data means we can create a new master data by copying a existing master data. For example, this location master data is there, right? So I can create one more master data which is referring to this location, which is called as location 2. So location 2 will be my destination where I wanted to transfer my material or anything, right? So why this reference master data is there? If let's say I'm changing anything to location, I'm adding anything to this location. Anything means can be new attribute or new information, right? So that will be directly going to change my setting for location 2. I don't have to change every now and then other master data as well. So this reference master data helped me in that way. Also, if we are let's say integrating with some non-SAP or some system where different master data are there, right? That is not defined in IBP, right? So that we can define in external. Okay. So I'll show you some example how these external and virtual can be there. Through example, we can understand it better. So simple is like the singular thing, product, location, customer, right? But when I talk about compound, I have the composition of each and everything. So the difference over here is this, under this simple, I will have only one attribute which will be my key root attribute, which will be my key primary key, right? And since it's a primary key, it will be a mandatory thing to be maintained. Similarly for location or customer. Now if you move to compound, we have the compound master data, which will be the combination of 2 master data. So now to make it unique, we'll have 2 keys over here, which will make it unique. So they will be required as well. They will be compulsorily maintained. Then only it will make it unique. Then only we can save that particular master data. Now, if I talk about virtual, so in virtual also, what we can do is we can join one or two master data and we can create our new master data. For example, I'm sharing, I'm saving this customer or product information, right? But I wanted to join those information and I can make my own master data, right? So these are all like business specific, requirement specific information is there which we wanted to save it. Like, so here when we are combining these two master data to, so the keys will also going to increase because we are joining two, more than two or more than one master data. To make it unique, we have to maintain different IDs so that it can be used while performing the planning. Okay. Now, so I'll show you some of the virtual master data which we have created while discussing the different scenarios, so that we can understand in a much better way. I'm just introducing like what kind of master data we can create in IBP. Now, in this, let me show in the web UI how we can like what are the different attributes in master data can be checked or verified in the system.